This is the blog post for Unit 1. I think that curriculum is a plan for instruction that lays out the knowledge students should be learning and ways to implement learning this knowledge. The term curriculum, in my opinion, is a holistic view on what students should know within given grade levels. And honestly, for a first-year teacher who is entering a pre-K through 8 position where there has previously not been a vocal position, curriculum can be intimidating. To me, a good curriculum should be detailed, scaffolded in a way that makes most sense, and constantly changing to meet the needs of students. After reading all of the assigned materials, I don't believe there is truly one universal way to design a curriculum. Different methods will work for different teachers and their students. I believe that a teacher can develop a way that works for them through going through one particular method or combining principles from multiple methods. This will provide a tailored way of design that will be most effective. Regardless of what methods are used, student success must always be in the end goal when designing curriculum. While reading the chapters of Understanding by Design, the concept of backwards design was introduced to me for the first time. I think that this line of thinking can be very beneficial when planning a curriculum. It brought up an interesting point, that we often get so stuck on activities we want to do with the students that we often forget that we need to build these lesson plans around student success. By looking at what we want students to achieve first, instead of just broad topics, we may be able to build instructional materials around the end goal in a more effective manner. I never realized that I do this, but I found that in my student teaching, I would build a unit based off of a concept, and then later plan what I would expect from students. I believe it is important to have this in mind from the very beginning. This design method can also be used to cross-check older lesson plans and to modify them based on whether or not they have student results in mind from the beginning of the unit. I also found it interesting to write the assessments before the material, and I'm looking forward to trying this method in the future. I think it's important to have certain student standards in mind from the beginning, and to have a point to reach with the students by the end of a learning segment or unit. I also connected strongly with a humanistic approach explained in the field of curriculum, as it seems as if this makes students responsible for their learning and plans for this within the unit. This could be combined with the backward approach, as self-efficiency can be a result of this lesson plan. This article also brought up the point that many people can be held accountable for a class's curriculum. As I go into my first job, I wondered who I should look to for standards on the curriculum and what I will teach. I wondered if the administration would have a guideline for what they would like me to teach. For a new program especially, I believe that the input of students is very welcome in the classroom, as well as shared responsibilities with parents and guardians. A lot can be gained through student and community input, especially in a field like music. When designing a curricula, all students' needs should be taken into consideration. The student's prior background knowledge is also an essential factor. I realized this at my first student teaching placement. When preparing a unit for a 5th grade general music class, I was informed on a unique situation with the 5th grade. All of the students were new to the school this year and have had a vast difference in music education. When speaking of solfege, some students had never heard of do, re, and mi. Some students were so far advanced that they knew solfege syllables such as fi and si, as well as the kodai symbols. Music curriculum is monitored so little in some situations, which makes it difficult for students to pick up material if they move schools. In the article, A New Essential Curriculum for a New Time, this very issue was addressed. Jacobs brings up that we need to have standards for students, which is not the same as standardization. At a school like City Honors, new diverse populations will be coming into the 5th grade every year. Therefore, the music curriculum needs to be changed to match these needs. New technological needs and availability also need to be taken into consideration when designing a curricula. As the Jacobs article also mentions, the idea of school has not changed much for a long time. Students still get up Monday through Friday and go to school for 6 hours, as they did 100 years ago. The way to make school relevant to them is to teach them in a way they understand, and by taking advantage of technological instructional materials. This is not only a way to keep students engaged, but also an efficient way to teach students. As technology changes, curriculum should also change. Regardless of what curriculum design you feel is right, the same end goal should always be kept in mind: student understanding. When I think of understanding music, I think it means something different for every grade, depending on the lesson objectives. For a pre-K student, I believe understanding music can mean finding the tonic pitch and keeping a steady beat. For an 8th grade student in a class such as choir, I believe it means understanding basic solfege and performing it with accuracy. Understanding music can mean something different depending where the student is developmentally and what the goals are within the curriculum. In the chapter Music, Education, and Curriculum, Elliott describes several essential questions that should be answered in the orientation stage of curriculum making. At the top of this list is a question, what are the aims of music education? I think that student comprehension of music with the standards for their developmental level is one of the main goals for music education. I think it is important to note that not all students will grasp the concept of what you are trying to teach them. However, that is not to say that they will not later understand it further in their music education. I once observed a lesson based off of Old Dan Tucker where the students were required to write in their own verses that would go along with the other verses of the song. Some students were able to grasp this right away. Some could not find how to write lyrics to a rhythmic way. When going back to review this lesson within the folk song unit, I was surprised to see that suddenly it clicked for many of the students that previously didn't understand. To me, these students were still successful, as they were able to still complete the task, just on their own time. As far as being able to see and hear music understanding, I believe that informal assessments will be able to test this frequently. When a student truly understands a musical concept, they tend to do it correctly frequently. Consistency seems to be the key of whether or not a student is understanding. If a student starts off not understanding a concept, but is later tested and they are consistently doing the correct thing, it's important to see their progress as well as their end response. Alternatively, if a student performs something correctly but they are unable to reciprocate it again, this shows that they do not yet possess the skill or knowledge that is at hand. As far as curriculum goes, informal and formal assessments should be built in frequently to gauge student learning.